Part 1. Drifting Without Direction. There once was a little gray cloud named Kura, who spent her days wandering the wide blue dome of the sky. Unlike the proud storm clouds that formed thunderheads, or the delicate wisps that stretched like lace across the horizon, Kura was unnoticed, neither grand nor graceful, neither particularly dark nor especially bright. She existed between definitions, too light to bring rain, too shadowy to sparkle. She did not yet know who she would become. Every morning, Kura would rise with the softness of dawn, moving lazily with the high-altitude wind. Her sky held many others, sails of cirrus, flocks of alto cumulus, but she rarely traveled with them. Instead, she drifted on her own currents, feeling comfort in solitude. At first, she believed that wandering was her destiny, to watch from above, silent and formless, observing the earth below like a dream one can never remember upon waking. Below her, the world was full of certainty. The mountains stood with patience. The rivers ran with purpose. The forests whispered stories to each falling leaf. Even the wind, though flighty, had direction. Kura wondered if she too would find such clarity. She felt inside her a strange yearning, one she could not name. Deep in her vaporous heart, she wanted something more than simply floating from morning to afternoon. The sun folk often told legends of the sun. Kepra, the golden orb of warmth and brilliance. They said that merely basking in his rays could change the essence of a cloud, turning her from gray to glowing, from confused to certain. But the sun never stayed in one place, and his path was never open to aimless wanderers. You must be purposeful, other clouds said. You must know who you are before you seek the sun. That instruction puzzled Kura most of all. How can I know who I am, she thought, before I have found what might illuminate me? Round and round this thought swirled inside her, accompanying her across dawns and dusks, like an echo she could neither ignore nor answer. One evening, after a dusk painted with violet and rose, Kura watched the other clouds scatter for nightly rest. Alone she gazed at the glittering stars twinkling above, and the quiet earth lying in slumber below. She felt both humbled and inspired by their stillness. For the first time, she whispered into the spacious night, "Tomorrow I will search for the sun." She did not know how far he might be, or what path would lead her to him. But she felt a calm resolve weave through her once aimless wisps. She would no longer drift without intention. Even if she remained uncertain of her nature, she would move forward into the dawn.
Part 2. The Journey Begins. The next morning, Kura awakened earlier than she ever had. The horizon still held a tender indigo as she stirred, catching the first glimmer of silver-pale promise. She headed east, believing that the sun would rise from that place. Her progression was slow. She had never pushed against the wind before. Breezes nudged her this way and that, surprised at her stubbornness. But she persisted, even when her edges frayed from the strain. Along the way, she encountered a lean, swift cloud named Tyrannus, sleek and bright. "Why push so hard?" Tyrannus called joyously as he spun past her. "The winds will take you somewhere delightful if you let them." "I'm searching for the sun," Kura replied, still inching east. Tyrannus laughed lightly. "The sun is everywhere. Why search for what will come to you?" Kura did not answer. She wasn't sure how to explain her yearning. It wasn't that she simply wanted sunlight upon her. It was something different, a sense that if she could brush against his warmth with her very core, she could learn something essential and hidden about herself. As the ruby rim of the sun nudged above the earth, she felt a subtle warmth touch her gray edges. But immediately, a flock of bright cirrus clouds glided between her and the newborn rays, absorbing them into their crystalline shimmer. Kura shivered, not from cold, but from longing. Still, she did not let discouragement gather into rain. Instead, she continued pressing east. Perhaps if she could move faster, reach higher, or stay longer, the sun might turn his face fully toward her. The sky changed as day deepened. She passed over farms where green fields stretched beneath her, like patchwork quilts stitched with rivers. She watched children running through meadows below, turning their faces up, shouting at the breeze, waving at drifting shapes as if greeting old friends. She admired their simple certainty. They know they are children. They know they play. They know they dream. What a treasure such clarity must be. But Kura did not stop. She reached far-off places with names she did not know, over distant seas, above silent deserts, across ancient mountain ranges. Each place offered wonder, yet she felt no transformation within. Despite catching a few rays of sunlight here and there, she remained the same small gray cloud, quiet and uncertain. One particularly still afternoon, she felt exhaustion at her very center. She had pushed farther than she ever knew a cloud could, and yet she was no closer to the sun than when she began. Was her journey foolish? Was she chasing a fantasy? She slowed her pace and allowed the breezes to guide her west once again. The sun, magnificent and mysterious, still shone, bright and strong, yet always just beyond her grasp. Her heart ached with disappointment. Perhaps Tyrannus was right. Perhaps the sun must come to you without chasing. With her resolve fraying, she let herself drift over a quiet lake. The water reflected the sky like a polished mirror, and for the first time Kura saw her own image. She appeared small and uncertain, a hazy gray shape stretched across the mirrored surface. Her reflection looked tired, but there was something else too, a softness, a gentleness to her form that she had never fully appreciated. Maybe she did not need brilliance to have value. Maybe her calm presence provided a gift to the earth she floated above, the soft shading during midday heat, the tender shadow for a weary traveler, the promise of rain someday. There was quiet purpose even in grayness. As the afternoon waned, she whispered to the lake, "Is it enough to simply be?" The lake did not answer with words, but its surface responded with tender ripples, soothing her doubts. Inside her heart, a new sense of calm unfurled. Maybe she did not need to chase the sun in grand leaps. Maybe, if she learned to bloom where she drifted, the sun might notice her in his own time.
Part 3. Becoming Gentle Light. Kura began to practice being quietly present rather than relentlessly moving. She allowed herself to hover where needed, not with the frantic hope of transformation, but simply to offer shade on sweltering afternoons, softness during harsh skies, and a companionable presence during lonely sunsets. On one such day, she found herself above a dusty village. The villagers below were sweating and weary, the fields around them dry and strained. Some looked up and frowned at Kura, hoping she might bring rain, but she was still too small and wispy for that. Others saw her as a harbinger of relief from the scorching sun. She did what she could.
She elongated herself gently, casting slightly more shadow over a patch of earth where an old farmer knelt, wiping his brow. The farmer glanced up. Instead of shaking his fist at her inability to reign, he smiled and touched his straw hat. "Thank you, little cloud," he whispered. Kura fluttered slightly at his gratitude. She had never imagined that anyone might thank a cloud such as her. She had often believed herself unnoticed and perhaps unnoticeable. Day after day, she lingered near the village. She no longer felt the need to travel far. Though she did not have rain to give, her shade softened the relentless daylight just enough for the crops to withstand the summer blaze. The villagers began to know her by sight. The children pointed to her shape, giving her playful nicknames. She thought she heard them call her Kind Cloud. One evening, while she bathed in the blush of dusk, Kura felt warmth radiate through every droplet of her being. At first she thought it was dusk's rosy hue, but then she realized it was something stronger, gentler, golden. She turned, stunned, to see the sun himself dipping toward the horizon, gazing directly upon her. She trembled, afraid to dissolve into mist, but she did not flee. The sun's rays touched her forehead, her center, her trailing wisps. Instead of burning, they soothed. "Little cloud," said a deep, comforting voice inside her soul, though she did not know if it came from him or her heart. "You found me not by chasing, but by becoming yourself." Kura felt herself begin to change, very slowly, gently. Her gray softened into silver. Her once tired body felt light within, as if each droplet gleamed from a secret hidden shine. She remembered her old longing. She had wanted to find the sun so he might reveal her identity, and now, as his gaze found her at last, she understood she had become herself along the way. "You are beautiful," the sun seemed to say through his steady warmth. Not the dazzling brilliance of a storm-crowned cloud, nor the spectacular shimmer of celestial ice, but her own soft glow, silver and tender, compassionate and calm. A glow earned through journey, fatigue, doubt, and finally acceptance. Kura glowed until twilight swallowed her gently. She slept peacefully for the first time in memory, her heart brimmed not with longing, but with quiet contentment.
Part 4. Sharing the Light. When morning came, Kura awoke again, but something in her had changed for good. She no longer thought of herself as a gray, anonymous drift. Within her vaporous form lived a soft luminescence that she could feel but could not see. Not flashy, but undeniably warm. As she floated over Earth, she found herself emitting the gentlest glimmer, too subtle to blind and too kind to ignore. The farmer looked up one morning and touched his hat again. "There you are," he said to Kura. "Good to see you again." The children greeted her with squeals of delight, chasing her shadow across the fields. Kura felt a new confidence spread through her. She did not need to leave them to search. The sun saw her, wherever she stood, as long as she stood true to herself. Seasons shifted. Rain clouds came and went. Snow visited occasionally. Kura learned to move with purpose, to linger over thirsty lands, to float gently across places where calm was needed, and, when storms threatened, to drift beside frightened villages, offering them comfort through her serene companionship. She was transformed not into thunder or lightning, but into a gentle presence, what the sun called a cloud of peace. Eventually, travelers spoke of her. "Have you noticed," they would say, "that whenever that soft silver cloud appears above your town, life feels a little kinder?" Some believed she was a blessing. Others believed she was a guardian. Kura did not mind the names.
She simply continued being who she had become, calm, compassionate, and present. From time to time, she still carried in her heart the memory of her long search for the sun, how desperately she had once tried to earn his attention, pushing across the sky until exhaustion nearly dissolved her. But now she smiled at that memory. The journey had not been pointless. It had led her to know her strengths, not through grandeur, but through gentle endurance, quiet purpose, and loyal presence. And sometimes, as she lingered over sleeping farms in the whispering dark, she saw him again, the sun, only in dreams at first, and then in the golden rays of dawn where he called her softly toward the horizon, not to chase him, but to rise alongside him in harmonious partnership. They spoke in silence, the way light speaks to water droplets, glowing gently, shining quietly.
Part 5. Home at last under the sun. Years passed, skies changed, storms raged and passed, the earth turned endlessly. Kura remained faithful to her calm calling. She came to recognize that true transformation often happened slowly, so subtly that one might not see it until looking back. She remembered being afraid she wasn't enough, not bright, not bold, not distinct. She had compared herself to thunderheads, snow-laden giants, iridescent cirrus. Now she understood she carried a kind of beauty invisible to those who celebrate only spectacle. But to those exhausted by life, to farmers in need of softness, to travelers searching for gentle guidance, she was everything. One particularly radiant dawn, after years of wandering and watching, Kura felt a warmth unlike any before. The sun rose, brighter than she had remembered, but instead of dazzling and blazing heat, he rose gently, as if whispering rather than roaring. It was as if he had chosen to meet her style, quiet, calm, yet steadfast. He lingered just above the horizon a moment longer than usual, and Kura drifted near him, unafraid. His golden rays slid over her like fingertips across a harp. Within her, droplets shimmered in serene shades of pearl. From her core to her edges, she glowed not with the harsh gleam of midday heat, but with the gentle shine of early morning hope. Across the countryside, faces turned upward, smiling without knowing why. Birds sang more sweetly. Leaves rustled with delicate joy. Even the mountains seemed less stern in that moment of harmony. Kura knew, undeniably, that she had found what she once sought, not by conquering, not by demanding, but by offering herself truthfully to the world until the sun saw her in her fullness. That dawn, something powerful finally settled in her, a sense of home. She was not destined for one place or another. Her home was the sky itself, the high blue roof of creation, and her heart would always be wherever her calm was most needed. As the sun climbed higher, she slowly moved across the sky, allowing his rays to pass through her, blessing the earth below with dappled light and cool shade. The farmers harvested under her watch. The rivers glimmered where her shadow passed. Her once gray self now carried light, given by the sun, shared with the world. She did not shout, did not boast, did not demand reverence. She simply lived as herself, day after day, moment after moment, remaining a symbol of peace in a world that often forgot the power of gentleness. In time, other wandering clouds came to her. They whispered of their own doubts, fears, and unformed longings. Kura would let them rest beside her, telling them her story not in words, but in presence. Do not fear your uncertainty, she would say without speaking. Drift with honesty, serve with kindness, glow in your own way. The sun has room for many kinds of light. The legend grew. Across skies and stories, she was known not for dramatic storms or torrential rains, but for her calm radiance, proof that even the humblest searcher could become a bearer of light. And so, the cloud who found the sun remained a quiet guardian of serenity, teaching all who looked up that sometimes the brightest transformations begin in softness, patience, and the courage to drift gently toward your truest self, until the sun at last finds you waiting with open heart and gleaming soul. The end.